Welcome everybody to the March Great Expectations Community Meetup. I am going to share the agenda here. So we'll do the community celebration, and then after that, we're going to do the part 2 of Ruben's AWS S3 data validation and documentation in GX demo presentation. Tal's going to do some product updates and data sources introduction. Then we're going to have Ruben again demo the new Fluent way to configure data sources, and then we're going to wrap up. All right, so I will dive right into the community update. So we're still hiring. Couple positions up. If you have any questions about those positions, do feel free to reach out to me or anyone on the GX team, and we can point you to the right person that give you all the details if we're not the right person. So keep a lookout. If you're interested in these positions, apply. All right, here's some project stats and community stats. So since the last time that we met, our Slack users have grown 456, which is great. We're almost at 10,000, 9,740. So yeah, continuing to grow, which is great. Helps this project to keep moving. Our PyPy downloads are continuing to grow. Last month we had 9.5 million, which is the most that we've ever had in a month. So very excited to see that. Gonna keep going here. Still don't know how we had a day with 0. So there's something must have broke there. I'm very interested in how that happened. Maybe there was just a great expectations protest for one day. All right, so I want to say thanks and kudos. These are the folks that have contributed to the project over the last month. So thanks, Richard. Thanks, Marcin. Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Luke. I feel like I've seen Luke around for forever now. So thanks so much for sticking around and continue to contribute to the project. And then here are Slack supporters. So these are people that are getting in the mix in Slack. They're answering questions, they're providing resources. They're not only good answering questions, but they're asking good questions to help really figure out what the issues are that people are bringing. So that's awesome, really great to see. I'm seeing a few people ask those types of questions, like Lori, like Alexi, Melody, Veronica, Philip, Jeff, Patrick, Bogdan, Amori, Daniel, Benji, Enos, Sweet, Bob, Ahmad. Thanks to everybody who's been contributing. This is huge for us and the Slack community to keep it thriving. And helping each other out goes a long way. So thanks again to everybody listed here. All right, that's it for the community update. I'm going to pass it off to Ruben. And Ruben, I'm assuming you're going to want to take the
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. Yeah.
All right, I'll get out then.
Hey all. So yes, I'm good. This is going to be part 2 of a demo that we started last month. Just to reemphasize, this demo is basically we just took all of this guide that we've developed, right? And just a quick reminder where to find them. If you go into our docs, on the left nav, integration guides. Underneath that, you go using Great Expectations with AWS. And the guide that we've been working off of is the Great Expectations using S3 and Pandas. In part 1, we went through setting up steps, making sure that we had all the requirements, setting up the different stores, etc. And then we're going to spend all of this time going from part 2 all the way to the bottom until we can see our docs and the validations ready. Then for that, we're going to do it all through a Jupyter notebook. And just to be clear, all the code in the Jupyter notebook, it was taken from this guide. So it's not, I'm not introducing any new or novel concepts that are not already in this guide, but it's just to make it a very concise and very easy to show way, right? So let me 1 second. Okay. Oops. 1 second. And also, we are going to be including this notebook for your reference. If look for a link to the file in the email recap. We'll send the email recap sometimes later this week. So look for the links for the notebooks that we're going to be showing off today about this. About this demo. So that way, again, if you want some heads up, like not heads up, if you want a leg up on your getting started with this guide, you can look at a reference as well. So let's get started. So first and foremost, some boilerplate imports and some things that will be needed down the line. And I think to note in this document, in this notebook, I'm including some links to documentations and some descriptions of what I'm doing. That I also provide some distinctions of the different things that you might want to do and the difference in the configurations that you might want to add as well. I'm not sure exactly why Python is taking so long to process these imports, but all right, that's done. So we get the context from that. And then after that, then we're gonna create a data source via a YAML config, but we're really using the programmatic way, which is basically a declaration of YAML within your Python code. The important things to notice here is that the data connector and the data where we're grabbing that, this is going to be our bucket in AWS S3. And the type of files that we want to grab from there and the data assets. So we just make sure that it's all right. And this is a very important sanity check that we have here that we have in the tool. This is not just going to check that the syntax is valid, but basically it's going to check that whether the data sources that you think you have and that you think you have correctly configured actually work. And then, this is always a good thing that we provide these methods. So that way that you can test your configuration and your assumptions as you go. So you don't have to find any surprises down the line. Here we can see the two files that we have in that bucket that we have right here. And then once you are convinced or that you are that this is exactly what you want, then we're going to go ahead and tell Great Expectations to save that data source in its context. After that, right, so we have the data. Now we need to have it in a form so that way we can validate it. And then the way that we use this is through batch requests. There's no a couple of different types of data batch requests. For this time, we're going to use a runtime batch request because of the ability that it gives us to specify the things that we want for this demo. Again, like in this, we're require like the data source, the name. This is the data source that we defined in part 1 of this demo. And this is the connector name is what we created right here in the configuration above. And then this is just an arbitrary name that we want to give this asset name. And then the runtime parameters, we're just specifying a path here for that one file, just for the sake of this example. You could provide, like if it's a number of files at a different batch, etc., right? So we're going to create that batch holder. And then, by itself is not particularly useful. Now we need to marry a few different things, a few different concepts here, right? Like, so we have the data and we have the batches that we want, the batches of data that we want to run validations on. So now we need to create the validations, right? And the way that we do this is going to be via expectations. Like expectations are sort of like the language the Great Expectations use to validate, assumptions or versus reality, and making sure that things are honest all the way. And so then, first we're going to create an empty test suite. We're just going to give it a name, an arbitrary name or whatever is convenient to you. And then we're going to get a validator from the context. And then that validator is going to be primed with the batch request and the expectation suite that we just created above, right? And then in this statement right here, the validator head, this is, again, a sanity check. You don't need to have this in your code, but we like to emphasize the incremental nature of as you're configuring things and figuring out the Great Expectations to make sure that everything is working as you expect, right? So we're going to go ahead and create that, and we get the validator, right? And this is going to give us the first 5 rows of whatever data source you gave it. In this case, because like that's just the way that we're providing it to. In here, you can take a glance at your data, the first 5 rows, whatever, right? And then, after you have validated, then we can add expectations based on that, right? Like you observed, for instance, the passenger count, right? Like it cannot be null. Or ideally, you want passenger count never to be null. So you add that expectation that exists here, right? Same with the surcharges, right? Like we want to make sure that it's not a negative amount. We need to know that we need to make sure that the data is not between $1,000 for the congestion surcharge. It just doesn't make any sense, right? So, but just like that, you could add any of the expectations that we offer, as the core expectations, and then you can augment that with your own expectations as well. So we create this calculate the metrics, etc. And this just gives you like a quick validate, of the things that are created for you. And then we're going to go ahead and save that expectation suite. The expectation suite is going to include those two things that those two expectations that we added, right? Next up is just we create a checkpoint, right? Checkpoints is like a mental and also a programmatic abstraction, so to speak, for having like a point in time where we get the validations and we take actions on those validations, right? Like, and what happens to them and to the results of those, right? So we're going to create, there's different checkpoints that you may use, and depending on the complexity of your use case, you might have, different actions, custom things that you might want to do. But for the sake of this example, we're going to go with a simple checkpoint, which is the simplest one to use, simple ones to configure. Just simply provide a name and a run template. That is the minimum configuration that you can have. And then you're going to get added, you have the config ag, and then this is just going to tell us, hey, yeah, you have the configuration, but like there's nothing connected to it logically. So then basically we're just going to add it to the context. Now remember, in the context, we have the validators, we have the batch request, and we have data assets that we have configured thus far. And then it's same as validation results, data docs, etc. Right? So now we have this actual configuration ready to use. And then we're going to go ahead and run it, right? We're going to run the checkpoint with the batch request that we gave, the expectation suite that we have, and it's going to go ahead and run it for us. This is also, by the way, this in the checkpoint, just because, as you can see, we have like the store validation results and updated data docs. That checkpoint is going to go ahead and create and store in S3. This is why it's taking, it seems like, oh, well, it's just 2 exceptions. Why it's taking so long? It's because it's really generating those results and pushing them to S3, right? And he's also pushing the data docs as well into S3. And then that's it. I mean, like right now, we can just go ahead to open this, and then we're going to see the data that we just run right here. And then the results, the 2 expectations that we want, the congestion search and the passenger count, and exactly what we were expecting from that data. And yeah, that's, again, that's it for the demo. Again, a reminder, we have these wonderful guides that we created. We call them in Golden Path, or you can call them deployment patterns, whichever way you want to call them. They're end-to-end, very comprehensive guides. In this particular, the main topic is AWS. We hope to expand that to other things. But for now, like these are wonderful places to get started and to develop your muscle and actually develop your whole solution for great expectations, if this happens to fit your pace from 0 all the way to when you can see data docs. And pass turn. Cut.
All right. Thanks, Ruben. Appreciate that. I believe so. Next we have, and if people have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Ruben can answer them while he's not presenting, which will only be for a few minutes. Otherwise, we can always follow up in Slack. So thanks, Ruben. All right, Tal, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Sounds good. Thanks. Yeah, let me share the presentation as well. All right. Are you seeing my screen?
Yep.
All right, so we have a couple of product updates. So first, I wanted to announce that as part of, so we're doing a big release. We did a big release for Fluent, the Fluent method of configuring data sources. We're going to talk a lot more about that soon and do a demo of that soon. And these represent a major improvement to the ease with which you can configure a data source. And so to reflect this, we bumped our version, the version of Great Expectations to version 16, 0.16. So this is super exciting. It also means that code that was deprecated in version 13 or earlier will be removed. So this will include the V2 API. If you currently rely on the V2 API, we strongly encourage you to upgrade to Fluent data sources, and you'll see we've made it really easy to do so. Until you can do that, you can always pin your version of Great Expectations. And we'll be including everything that's being removed with each release in the release notes each week. So what is the Fluent method of configuring data sources? We've demoed this in the past. We've done a whole lot of work on this. So I just wanted to remind you like what this is all about. And so the idea is that we want to make sure that connecting to data is a really easy and joyful experience. And so what we've done is we've made all these improvements to the usability with which you connect to data sources. So this comprises a few different pieces. The idea, first of all, is that we want it to feel like a native experience when you connect with whatever data source you're working with. So if you're using Pandas, we want it to feel like you're just connecting to data with Pandas, same with SQL and same with Spark. We just saw a great demo from Ruben on connecting to data with S3, and it's like we've seen it uses these big blocks of config, but we wanted to make it easier so that you can actually just connect to data, build your data source configuration in an incremental way. So you get faster feedback, better errors, like immediately understanding what you're doing and not doing. And then we also wanted to make sure that this would work great in Python and be a first-class experience. If you want to work in a notebook, it's going to be great. If you want to work just directly in a script or a REPL, that'll work really well as well. And then it also makes working with multiple batches an easier experience and a more first-class experience, which will connect to other product features like data assistance and general profiling. And then finally, we also wanted to make the process of contributing new data sources a pleasure. And so not just using them, but contributing them as well is easier than it's been before. And then finally, these are compatible with current data sources. So there's no breaking changes here. It's just a new, easy way of connecting. But if you have old configuration using the V3 API, it's still possible to use that. And we're not going to be sending that away anytime soon. So I think that's all I have, and we're going to send it back to Ruben for another demo.
Thanks, Tal. Again, questions in chat or Slack. Ruben's up again.
All right. All right, folks. I guess you just saw me like 5 minutes ago, but just to restate, my name is Ruben Reduce, and I'm a developer advocate for Great Expectations. And then so I'm going to, be the demo in a real quick. The new way of configuring data sources, we're calling it the Fluent way of configuring data sources, right? Just to, which is a very, personal opinion, and obviously shared by the company, is a very exciting development, and we hope that the users will find it just as exciting, just as useful as we think it will be. First and foremost, right, we're gonna let's import the basic boilerplate stuff that we do with Great Expectations. And then this is the way normally, if I wanted to get a CSV file out of my file system, this is, probably normally what I would use, like a configuration, and you would need to figure out the bits here and there, right? And then eventually load that data in or whatever. However, and this is the cool part, right? This is, by the way, an AI generated image of Pip from Great Expectations looking at data. So then, this is the way that you do it nowadays with the new Fluent way of doing things. And that's it. That's it. You're ready to use that validator to start adding expectations to it, right? Like you can add 2 expectations that in this case, the pickup date's not to be null because we already know the shape of the data, like making that assumption there. But you could also look at the data yourself. with something like validator.head, and then you will be able to see the first few rows, etc. Same with the congestion chart, etc. And that's it. Those are ready to run. And obviously now we need to make it a little, create a checkpoint with this, with the validator, the context that we're passing that's going to run. And so this is just going to go now and get the validation list and create the data docs for it. Boom. You can see that it just now almost immediately, we went from not having a data source to having data docs in about, I don't know, like, well, this is one line of code really, 3-4 lines of code, and you're already in business, right? Like, and what this enables though, is like a lot of things is just, as you're starting to experiment and getting, familiar with both good expectations of your data, right? Like this lets you like iterate really fast. Like it lets you like see your data and get immediate feedback on that data, run expectations on that data. And then, like as you start getting more fancy or more complex, as your use case grows, you can also grow with it as well. And then, if you need to add this as eventually, right, like formalize it into a regular configuration mode as we speak. And just to reemphasize something that Tal said is very important, this will not replace, like this is not meant to replace the current way that we do it or the standard way, right? Like this is just a new way of doing things just to get you all ramped up in Great Expectations, right? Like this, like we will, Great Expectations, the way that it works right now, at least the configuration ways, right? Like this will remain with the product. Like they're supposed to be like the fluent way of creating things is just like, let's say, an ease of use type of enhancement, right? Like, and rather than being a replacement for it. So like you can continue to use the current system. If this is working for you, this is great. But if, we will really like you to give a try to the new default, to the new fluent way of configuring data sources. And you can reach out to Tal or Susie, both of them in the community Slack, if you have any questions, suggestions, comments. We are in the feedback period of this release. We're very excited about this, and we will like. All right, so after I'm done here, right? Like, and then you say, well, Ruben, that's great. You just did a local file, big deal, right? Well, yes, but we can also, right? Like, look at this in S3, right? The same thing applies, right? Like, if we were to do this, we do the basic imports into their workspace for Python, and this is normally how you would set, right? If you have an asset, assuming that you have their asset, you include it in the S3 data connector, you will have to define this ahead of time, etc. And I mean, once Python is done loading the imports, all right, now it is, then we're just going to create some very basic options with this is going to be just the bucket name and the arbitrary data source name that we want to give it. And this is it. Like this is these lines here. You accomplish with these lines and these variables, basically what you would have had to do to configure a data sys before. And then furthermore, here now we need to create add a data source because you might have more than one or might be ambiguous. So in this case, we're going to create it with this is going to create a sort of like a batch request internally. And this is going to create an asset within that. So that way we can have something to validate. And now we're in business. We can go to town. Like we just basically can create, like an expectation suite, like we did with all the patterns. And then we can get a validator with that. And then so that way we can add the expectations to it. We can create a checkpoint with it and get the run it. And this is going to go ahead and create a checkpoint, run it, and then we're going to create it. And eventually, we're just going to open the data docs to it. And that's it. We just went from not having a S3 data source to having a validated with actual expectations in data docs, all in, I don't know, a matter of a couple of minutes. We are incredibly excited for this development, and we are hoping that our users will find it equally exciting to work with and really useful, and taking a lot of the overhead and the ability to show these things. Okay, if you have any questions, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, reach out to Tal, myself, or any GX for that matter, any GX employee in Slack. And we will be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the Fluent way of configuring data sources.
Awesome. Wow. Big change. It's good to see it out in the wild. Hopefully that saves everybody a lot of time and effort. Thanks again, Ruben. I'm just going to share my screen really quickly before I let everybody go. Let's see here. Okay, all right. Thanks everyone for coming. I believe Tal, you had one more thing you wanted to share.
Yeah, I'm just echoing the request for feedback. Yeah, Ruben, that was awesome. So this is currently released. This is currently in the code base. We're slowly rolling out our docs, though I think our docs will be fully updated over the next couple of days. Please, like we want to keep making improvements. We want to make sure that we're able to connect to data with whatever your data source is. So yeah, drop a note in the channel, drop a note in Slack. Feel free to tag me. Let us know how it goes. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Tal. It looks like Alexi had one question that we may want to address. Is it implemented for Parquet, JSON, etc.?
I think it is currently implemented for those for Pandas, and I think we're working on the implementation for Spark now.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Thanks for the question, Alexi. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. I'll see you all next month.
Later on.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.